Hey guys, my name is Harry Karanassos from the Foundry of Ideas. This video is part of a video series on woodworking projects and tools, and hopefully these videos will make it easier for you to find exactly what you're looking for. When one applies pocket hole joinery, one must ensure that a good connection between two wood materials is achieved. For this purpose, a particular type of drill bit is required, which at its driving end is stepped to a smaller diameter drill bit. This smaller bit acts as a guide or pilot which forms the type of channel that will accept the screw which connects the two pieces of wood involved. I call it a channel because it actually bores, channels or guides the screw to land properly on the cylindrical channel which is prepared by both the full diameter part of the drill bit as well as by the part of the smaller diameter guide or pilot. The full diameter part of the drill bit produces the actual pocket hole. Effectively, both the channel created and the screw used act together to produce a very strong joint. The part of the drill bit that is of full diameter will create a 9.32 mm up to 9.42 mm channel, whereas its forward end guide or pilot will create a much smaller diameter channel of 4.35 mm up to 4.75. For reference purposes, I would mention here that the length of the guide or pilot varies from 12.4 mm to 14.9 mm. The transition between the full diameter part of the drill and that of guide or pilot is a 90 degrees step. Joining two pieces of wood with a pocket hole arrangement is, more or less, like making a butt joint held together with screws that are placed at an angle. One may also think of the pocket hole joint as one that has been invented to replace a mortise and tenon joint, maybe. Because of the way wood contracts and expands, one should try to drive the screws into the face grain of the linked board, i.e. not into the end grain of the linked board. Similarly, one ought to watch that the pocket board grain direction matches the grain direction of the linked board, so that contraction and expansion happen in unison. Irrespective of the type of joint one wants to create, it is always a good practice to drill a pilot hole for accommodating the entry of the screw and for preventing the splitting of the linked board material. This good practice is also recommended when one uses pocket hole joints, and a long thin drill of 3 mm diameter, 1/8 of an inch, will do a good job when it comes to drilling a pilot hole. A pilot hole of 20 mm to 25 mm length is sufficient. To conclude my discussion on the general points concerning pocket holes, I would like to mention that one ought to make sure that the following rules are also followed. For drilling holes, one should make sure that the clutch is set to its highest setting, which is sometimes represented by a drill bit. Also, one should set the drill to its highest speed setting, which is usually 2. It could be 3 at the top. This combination will give you the power and speed you need to drill holes. For driving screws, you also use the driving clutch in order to prevent overdriving or stripping the screw head. For very small screws, you want low torque or a very low number on the clutch dial, like 2 or 5. Also, set the drill speed to 1 at the top. That way you can drive the screws without worrying about overdriving or stripping the screw head. For larger screws, you use the more torque you will need, because a low setting will just let the clutch slip. So you need to dial it up to the highest torque to apply the power that you need. As you can see, this is where my KATSU pocket hole jig lives, on a base that I made for it. The whole thing, as you can see, is mobile. And before I go any further, let me clamp it onto my desk here. It is always nice to secure a tool like this, because you never know when vibration may move it around and even make it throw things at you. This is the jig now on my desk, and let me enumerate what comes with the jig. The jig is a base made out of anodized aluminium, a toggle clamp that moves back and forth this way. We have two guides here that serve to guide the actual drill bit. Now, one good point about the way that this system is arranged is that if you loosen this wheel here, you can take this off, and I'll show you in a minute what is the advantage of this. The jig comes with a manual, which is really and truly bare essentials. Nothing fantastic, no information regarding the size of screws that you want to use, so it's just a starting point, and that's all it is. I have secured here this box so as to be able to carry everything that comes with the kit. First of all, here is the drill bit, which is, as you can see, it is a combination of an actual drill, which is from here to here, and then at the forward end there is a smaller diameter drill, which is a pilot or a guide, and just for your reference, this one is 4.7 millimeters diameter, and the length of it, again for reference purposes, it's 14 millimeters. This length here is 14.5 millimeters, 16 millimeters, centimeters, 16 centimeters overall. Right, okay, as you can see, there is a collar here, and basically this hex screw here serves to secure the collar whenever we want to use it with the guides, so we can adjust the height of the drill bit above the base. Right, this and this, if you want to use them as a mobile pocket hole jig, what you do is you secure this one here with a screw here, and you secure this one here with another screw, and as you can see, whilst the lower part here is permanently secured onto this angle bar, this one can be moved, therefore you can alter the distance of the pocket holes, the guides, and at the same time the pocket holes. Right, let me put this back. And by screwing this wheel, you secure the two guides onto the upright here, 90 degrees to the base, this upright. The next thing that I wanted to mention is that you get covers here for your pocket holes, plugs. You get quite a number of 31 millimeter length screws. You get screws to secure the jig onto this piece of wood, and you get the two screws and two washers for going the mobile way with the angle bar. The last piece that I want to mention is the driver, which, as you can see, the front of the driver has got a square section, and it is a square section protrusion, whereas the actual screws here Let me show you one as an example. The actual screw has got a square recess. The head of the screw is flat like a washer here. You've got a clear shank. I'm saying clear because obviously there is no threading here. And here you have got your thread, and this is coarse thread for softwood. At the front here you've got the serration, and the serration serves to make this screw a self-tapping screw. So, next step in the agenda is for me to tell you that when I bought this, it went into storage and stayed into storage for maybe a little bit more than 2 years. When I eventually opened it up and had a look at it, I realized that the plunger that goes here was too short, and therefore it could only accommodate a maximum of 20 millimeter thickness wood. When I saw this situation, I was not satisfied that I could use the jig in the state that it was, and therefore I had to sit down and contemplate what one could do in order to make the jig usable. And in this respect, what I came up with was to move the jig from this and this and this position, one position back, so to speak. In other words, the screws and the position in the front has moved to the original back threaded holes, and here I had to drill 2 more holes, and here, which accommodated the rear screws that secure the toggle clamp. Now, once I made this arrangement, I realized that it would not be possible to operate the jig with one plunger, and I found that the answer to that was to make a new longer plunger which accommodates the 3 thinner thicknesses of wood that this jig can accept, and I modified the original plunger with a longer plunger, and this one now accommodates the 2 thicknesses that are the larger of the thicknesses that this jig can accommodate, which in fact are 32 millimeters and 38 millimeters, 1 1/4 inch and 1 1/2 inch respectively. So this is what I have made. This is my modification, and the jig works fine, with the exception perhaps of a thickness of wood of 13 millimeters, ½ inch. It is a little bit difficult to guide the drill bit where I want it, and where I want it is, this is a well, let me see, this one actually is 1238, which is good enough for ½ inch. If you put it here, you have got to rest it on these black screws and here. Don't rest it in front of them, because then this piece of wood will be going down at an angle. This is not the idea. The idea, even according to the manual, is that you rest this at this configuration. In other words, let it rest on top of the 2 screws, the hex screws that are provided. Now, let me show you what happens here. If you actually put it like that, then, as you can see, when we come flush with the tip of the pilot, we are really at the end of the wood. at the end of the thickness of the wood, and obviously this is not satisfactory. So the next possibility is to lift this a little bit further up or adjust this drill bit. The rest of the thicknesses are producing good results, I must say that. Now, in order to show you what is going on here, I think I better give you a practical example of how we can drill a pocket hole with this jig.